Joshua is encouraged, exhorted, and enabled by God's presence and by God's command to be strong and very courageous. Joshua sends in spies, prepares the people, and crosses the Jordan. And Jesus prepares his people for his second coming. Today on 3 in 1, as we consider Joshua chapters 1 through 3 and Luke chapter 21. Be strong and of good courage. Only be strong and very courageous. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua, encouraged, exhorted, and enabled by God's presence, yes, for God promised to be with him wherever he went. But Joshua is also encouraged, exhorted, and enabled by the very command of God as well. See, God's commands are our enabling. God only commands us to do things that he intends to empower us to do as well. But that empowerment is only found in obedience. And obedience often necessitates faith and courage. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. Now, God not only encouraged Joshua to be strong and very courageous and obedient, but he also commanded him, do not be afraid, nor dismayed. Why? Because Joshua was afraid and dismayed. Why? Because Moses was dead, and Joshua now stood before God and his people, charged with the daunting task of leading God's people in to physically fight by faith to inherit the land of promise. So yeah, Joshua was freaking out just a bit. So God encouraged, exhorted, and enabled Joshua with his command to be strong and very courageous, repeating this command again and again and again until it felt less like a command and more like a promise. As soon as Joshua believed more in God's ability rather than in his own inability, he would then find the faith that would trigger strength, obedience, and courage. So, what are you facing today? Are you measuring this difficulty against your inability or against God's ability? He is with you. He is for you. He will never leave you nor forsake you, and he will fight this battle for you. Only you be strong and very courageous, so that you obey. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. He truly is with you right now. Trust him. Surrender this difficulty to him and move forward in faith, faith in his ability to do exceedingly abundantly more than we could even ask or imagine. So Joshua receives God's encouragement and turns to prepare God's people, to which the people of God respond. Just as we heeded Moses in all things, so we will heed you. Only be strong and of good courage. I love that. Encourage your leaders with the very encouragement that they receive from God and give to you. It's good stuff. So in chapter 2, they send in spies, a recon mission before crossing the Jordan. 2 men are sent in, and they end up at the home of a woman named Rahab. Rahab the harlot, who was truly a God-fearing Gentile who had heard of what God had done through Israel, saying, "And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts melted. Neither did there remain any more courage in anyone because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath." Now, can sinners fear God and want to be under God's protection? Yes, obviously. But can sinners who are still sinning fear God and want to be under his protection? Yes. Don't assume that since a sinner is still sinning, that they have a seared conscience. They may have a crushed conscience, and they're just waiting for an opportunity to be rescued from the vicious cycle of sin, fearing God, wanting God to save them. That was certainly the case with Rahab, who is found in the Hall of Faith in Hebrews, a Gentile harlot who feared God, trusted God, and ventured out in obedient faith. Her life associated with literally the scarlet thread of redemption, physically and spiritually, mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament and in the New. For you, for an extension tour on our adventure today, search for Rahab's name in the New Testament. You may be surprised by what you find and where you find her name mentioned. You can search for her name in your Bible software or in a concordance. Email me if you have any issues, info@3n1.org. Well, in chapter 3, the day has come to cross the Jordan into the fight of faith to inherit what God has already given to them in the land of promise. So, early in the morning, Joshua gathered the people and said to them, "Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you." And the Lord said to Joshua, "This day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you." A glorious day, on the precipice not of possibility but of certainty, on the precipice of the fulfillment of promise, the land of promise, as they experience the explosion of God's power only after putting their toes in the water by faith. What do you have to lose in obeying God? Yes, you may be afraid. Yes, you may be terrified. Yes, you may be well aware of the worst that could happen. But if God has commanded you, and you are sure of that command, then He will and He is enabling you, even now. And as soon as you summon the courage to be strong and obey, you too will experience an explosion of God's power, making a way where there was no way. Wow, how I am looking forward to moving forward with Joshua in the book of Joshua. Okay, on to our New Testament reading for today in Luke chapter 21, where we read of Jesus debriefing his disciples on his second coming and the events leading up to it. It all started with someone appreciating the architecture of the Temple Mount, this massive rectangular foundation of the temple itself that rose up out of Mount Moriah and overlooked the entire city of Jerusalem. And where some saw beauty and intricacy, Jesus saw death and destruction. See, in 70 AD, the Romans would destroy the city and the sanctuary, including the Temple Mount, not leaving one stone upon another. So this was a prophecy given to the disciples, given to us by Jesus. In verse 5 it said, "Then as some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and donations, he said, 'These things which you see, the days will come in which not one stone shall be left upon another, that shall not be thrown down.'" This is one of the reasons why Jesus wept when he overlooked Jerusalem on his way in, saying, "If you had known, even you, especially in this your day, the things that make for your peace. But now they are hidden from your eyes. For days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment around you, surround you, and close you in on every side, and level you and your children within you to the ground, and they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not know the time of your visitation." Because they either did not believe Daniel's prophecy or were apathetically unaware, either way they did not know the day, the time that the Messiah entered in. So instead of establishing his kingdom on earth then and there, the Messiah would be cut off, crucified, and the people of the prince to come would then, in 70 AD, destroy the city and the sanctuary, not leaving one stone upon another. See, that also was included in Gabriel's prophecy given to Daniel in Daniel chapter 9. Listen, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublesome times. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood. And till the end of the war, desolations are determined." And now those desolations are outlined for his disciples in Luke chapter 21, where Jesus said, "Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons. You will be brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake, but it will turn out for you as an occasion for testimony. We live in the meantime between the first and the second coming of Jesus. And Jesus told us that in this meantime, we will have tribulation. But take heart, he has already overcome the world. But take heart, there is always opportunity in opposition, always an occasion for testimony. And don't worry about what you're going to say. God will give you the words then and there, and he will powerfully preach through you. Now, as the chapter continues, Jesus outlines specific signs that will immediately precede his second coming, so that we will not be surprised, so that we will not be caught off guard. And many of these signs will be seen in what the Bible calls the Great Tribulation, a specific 7-year period that immediately preceded the second coming of Jesus Christ, a time in which God pours out his wrath on this world. Now, many believe, myself included, that God clearly promises to rescue us from this wrath, as we are exhorted in 1 Thessalonians 1:10 to wait for God's Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, even Jesus, who delivers us from the wrath to come. Now, the reason why there is a debate on whether God raptures his people before, during, or after the Great Tribulation is because you can make a convincing argument for each. But Jesus ends the chapter with something that I think everyone can agree upon. Listen, verse 34. But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and the cares of this life, and that day come upon you unexpectedly. For it will come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch therefore, and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Someday, we all will stand before the Son of Man. I think we all can agree upon that. The question is, are you ready?